What?
He asked how he could get on.
Tell him to check his school email and he should get an invite. Raza or Willoughby?
Raza.
I sent him about 3 invitations. I just sent him another one. Tell him to check his school email.
Okay.
So, show up to you guys. You guys all read that okay in your phones?
Yep.
Okay. If someone else jumps in, we'll tell them hello, but let's rock and roll since we're a little bit behind and we don't want to be doing this all day. But those of you that I've seen since Friday, we've already talked about it, but we'll send everybody else too so they can see it. I thought the first thing we talk about is just the coaching staff for this fall. Since we just figured that out for sure Friday, 2 days ago, and I told you guys I would tell you once we knew something. So on the offensive side of the ball, Coach Donnell, Steve, and myself are all going to do the same position areas we had last year. I'm going to do O-line. Coach Stevenson's going to do running backs. Coach Donnell's going to do QBs, but then Coach Nate Barron is going to be joining us, and he's going to be the receiver coach on offense. And then on defense, kind of the same thing. Coach Stevenson's still doing D-line, and Coach Donnell is still doing DBs. But instead of me doing DBs with Coach Donnell, Coach Barron is going to help him with that, and then I'm going to be the linebacker coach. So those are set in stone and not going to change. I'm really the only one who had to change anything, and it was only on one side of the ball, so it's not a big deal at all.
Coach,
But, yeah.
Adam didn't get that email.
I don't know if I have his phone number, like to text it to him.
I have his phone number.
He just telegrammed me.
That's how I got it. Was on Telegram.
Yeah, I just sent it to him again on there, just like I did to you. So if that doesn't work, tell him to ask me again.
Okay.
But, anyways, if people ask you guys about that, or some other kids who don't see this or I didn't catch, feel free to tell them that Coach Nate Barron is the fourth coach, and he's going to do wide receivers and DBs. So, do you guys have any questions on that?
No.
Okay. He's going to do a really good job. He's from here and played high school football here, and some of you probably know his family. So.
Hey, heads up, guys. For those of you that aren't talking at the time, mute your microphone, and it reduces the background noise so you can hear Coach McKelkey better.
Yeah, there's a little microphone with the slash thing. So, all right, the next thing we're going to try is a little bit of an experiment. The topic for today was being a vocal leader, and some of you guys have done stuff with us from this spring, and Tanner, you did the same stuff last year. And some people who watch this haven't. So the way we kind of looked at leadership is that you first have to be a leader by example, and that's kind of a prerequisite, like level 1 being a leader, so to speak. And then once you've established that, probably the harder and rarer quality is being a vocal leader, which is what we're going to focus on today. But just so you're clear on how we broke down the leading by example, we said like the 4 C's are the things that leadership by example are based on, which are commitment, character, confidence, and I don't know why I don't have a fourth one on here. Composure. Let's do that. So I just thought those were good little brief definitions of what those are if you're not familiar with those. And if you want to read more about them, we can give you a copy from our little binder. But the premise of this is you have to be good at those 4 things before you ever even attempt to be a vocal leader. And I think a lot of you guys know either from experiences in football or other sports you play or whatever you do. When somebody's not a good leader by example and they try and be a vocal leader, even if they say what you think is the right thing, how does that usually turn out? High school guys, I'm asking you.
Probably like they don't listen. If you're not a good leader, they don't want to listen to somebody that they don't think knows what they're talking about.
TJ, what do you have to add to that?
You have to unmute your microphone, mate. You're really quiet.
There, can you hear me?
Barely.
I can barely hear you. So what was the question?
The question was, when someone's not a good leader by example and they try and be a vocal leader, what usually happens from your experience?
Well, I agree with what Tanner says. So.
In other words, you have no opinion of your own.
I can barely hear you.
Can you other guys hear me okay, or is it just him? TJ, I think you need to hold your phone up to your mouth more or something, because we can barely hear you, and they said they can hear me fine.
Well, I can barely hear you.
Do you have your volume turned up all the way?
Yeah.
Try headphones, and then you won't have to mute yourself.
Oh, good idea.
Okay. Now I have TJ stuck on here.
My headphones are outside.
Here we go. Okay. Here's what I see all the time on the football field, in school, places I've worked. When someone is not committed, plus those other 3 C's, character, confidence, and composure, but especially commitment, when they're not committed and they try and take a vocal leadership role, instantaneously what I see all the time is the people who they're trying to lead listen to that guy or lady talk who's not committed and not a good leader by example, and they roll their eyes. That is like an automatic reaction. I do that when people get up and try and lecture you or tell you how to do something. You're going, whoa, you don't even do that yourself, or you're not committed. Who are you to tell us? And or the people lean back and cross their arms, kind of like I'm shutting down and not listening to what this person has to say. Coaches Donnell and Stevenson, I'm curious, do you feel the same way, or is that just kind of my take?
Yeah, there's definitely when certain people get up and start spouting off about things, and if they don't lead by example, I do have a tendency to do one of these numbers, or like you said, I'll do this a lot. I touch my face, and then I look at someone in the room that I know agrees with me, and then that's when I roll my eyes. I'm like, sure. First thing I do. So yeah, I agree with you. People have a tendency to shut down, and then they don't hear a single word that person says.
Yeah, I agree. People that aren't committed or don't earn the right to vocalize that, people aren't going to listen.
So I think before we talk about vocal leadership, we're just trying to make it really clear. You have to be good at the leading by example part. And I think especially commitment, even if you're not great at the other 3, if you're committed, I think people will listen to you or give you a shot. But if you don't, I don't think anyone's going to listen, and you get that reaction Coach Stevenson talked about or I talked about. So what I thought we'd do for this part is Google Hangouts have this feature where you can watch a video together that's on YouTube, and I feel like sometimes as coaches, I might tell you something, and it's kind of like, well, we expect the head coach or we expect McKelkey thinks that or says that. And sometimes when you hear it from somebody else, I think the message is a little more clear or it kind of sticks more. And I wanted to have like a guest person join us this week, but he's driving to he's starting his master's in like his principal degree, and he's driving, so I had him record a video and put it on YouTube this week, and he shared it with me last night. I have to say I laughed at like the little intro and then the credit screen at the end, because this guy's a really good friend of mine. His name's John Lane. He's a head basketball coach in South Dakota. He used to coach football in Texas and in Montana with me. And he, like, one of his hobbies is he mixes like beats and like rap songs or something. I don't really know because I'm a white guy from Wyoming. But I laughed because he put one of those on the start and the end. But he's really good at being a vocal leader himself, and he is a head coach and a teacher. But he's also, the kids that he's coached when I've been around him, he does a great job of teaching that and emphasizing that and kind of creating vocal leaders. Where we coached together, he was the running back coach, and I thought he did a really good job of that. So that's why I asked him. I just said, hey, can you tell my guys, kids and coaches, kind of what you think and your take on it? So I'm going to try and hit play here. Could you guys see that or hear that when I hit play?
I can.
I heard you hit play, but I'm not seeing anything.
Okay. Maybe I just have to tell it to present my screen.
There it is. I got it now. No sound though.
Okay, my bad. I'll rewind it back a sec. And if it's not clear to see him, that's fine. I just want you to hear him.
A little bit about myself. I'm a coach here. South Dakota League I also am a very good friend of Mr. McKelkey, Coach McKelkey, who's a phenomenal person and coach. He asked me to talk to you today about vocal leadership. First and foremost, to get an understanding of all this of leadership is, you got to be who you are. You got to be yourself. And the only way to be a great leader, you got to be authentic in what you do. If you're not authentic, or if you're trying to be somebody you're not, leadership or trying to guide others won't really work. So you got to be yourself first and foremost. But the thing about a vocal leader, distinguish themselves between the people that are the ones that work hard. Anybody can work hard. And got lead by example. That's fabulous. That's great. But when you're a vocal leader, you got to be a guy that does both. You have to stand up, and you have to have accountability for your words. Being a vocal leader is something that's kind of scary, because you can lead by example, but if you don't say anything, people always expect you to work hard. And there's some days you'll be like, hey, I don't have to work hard. When you're a vocal leader and you hold your players and other people around you accountable with your words as well as your actions, there are days that you can't, there's no days off for you. And that's something you got to understand about being a vocal leader. And being a vocal leader isn't necessarily demeaning a person or getting after a person negative. You can do it in so many ways in a positive manner. For example, since you guys are football guys, say you're a running back and you're the top guy on the team, you're a vocal leader, and you are a leader that's that leads by example. And your linemen in practice keep jumping off sides, jumping off sides. And you're like, holy cow, what's the deal? The coach gets on them. But then that's when it means more when you come in the picture, when you come to play and say, hey, what's going on? You know what I mean? There's something going on. Where you at right now? Call them out, but you don't call them out negatively. You just call them out in a positive manner, saying, what's going on? We're here together. We're in this together. We need to be focused. And hold that player accountable for their actions with your words. But if you're going to take that route, you got to be prepared to have no days off. You got to be a leader on and off the field, no matter what the case is. It takes a special person to be both a vocal and an example leader. So you got to come out of your comfort zone, first and foremost. That's another thing. You got to come out of your comfort zone. If you can't come out of your comfort zone, or if you're not willing to come out of your comfort zone, vocal leadership may not be for you. But if you're willing to come out of your comfort zone and take your personality and the things that you have within yourself to another level, then you become a vocal leader. It wasn't until my senior year of high school that it came out of me, vocal leadership, and as well as example. It's changed my life ever since to take a leadership role. So, in conclusion, you can say that being a vocal leader takes strength and courage and discipline. You gotta have all those things, because your coach will come to you when something may not be going right with the player. He might try to come to you to see if you can talk to that individual player and try to get more out of it. But whatever the case may be, being a vocal leader is a role that you would never want to change once you get it. It's special and it's a great thing to have. But if you guys have any more questions, leave with Coach McKelkey. Hopefully I can help you out a little bit more. Thank you. Have a good one.
Okay. Could you guys all hear that fine? TJ, could you hear that okay? I can't hear you talking. Are you muted?
I heard that fine.
Say that again.
I said I heard that. The
Okay,
whole thing.
we couldn't hear you before, so.
I know these headphones. I don't know how to.
So, I think some of the stuff he said is really fitting, because if you look at the players on our team this fall and the guys that are captains and leadership council guys and just all the personalities really in general, I feel like we have some of the best leaders by example I've ever seen or been around. Like, the character, I don't think we've ever had better guys that are making good decisions, you know, taking care of their grades, being good kids at home, keeping their parents happy. I think we have some of the most committed guys we've ever had. But, coaches, you guys tell me what you think. I think in terms of just showing up, saying, okay, now who's a vocal leader and how, to what degree are they a vocal leader? I feel like organically or naturally we have some of the least vocally inclined guys, and sometimes it's like a guy's either one or the other. I'd rather have leaders by example, because you have to be that first. But I feel like the personalities on our team and our captains, those four guys especially, so we're talking Bo Hansen, Adam Raza, TJ Frazier, Adam Willoughby, those four guys are excellent leaders by example, and they're not quite developed vocal leaders across the board. And so I thought that was a good topic for today, and that's why I asked Coach Lane to talk about that. But Coach Donnell, you tell me what you think as far as like personalities and like team chemistry and who fits into what category.
No, I agree. I think that when it comes to leading by example, we've got, got a great group of captains, and just, not just captains. You look at our weight room this summer, and there's been numerous guys consistently in there. I do think, though, that we are, as captains, kind of a quiet group. And like Coach Lane had said before, when you're going to be a vocal leader, you need to make sure that you don't try and be somebody else. You still are who you are. But there's going to be times where somebody needs to step up and say something, and that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to yell and scream and chew on somebody. You can keep your own personality. It's going to mean more if you do, and just step up and say what needs to be said. Like I said, I think we are a quiet group, and I agree with you, Coach. We need to do maybe a better job as captains, being more vocal.
And I think another important part of that is, like, especially for you, Tanner, I talk to Coach Donnell and Coach Wilford about this all the time. Some positions are inherently leadership positions on a football field. You can't be a quarterback and say, well, I'll be a good quarterback, but I'm not a leader. And you can't be a good quarterback and say, but I'm not going to be a vocal leader. I'm just a lead by example guy. Because you're calling the cadence, you're audibling, you have to know what all 11 guys on the field are doing, and you're the guy who starts every single play with the ball in your hand. And so you don't have to be the most vocal guy or the best vocal leader, but you can't just say, well, I'm a lead by example guy and that's it. And in our defense, I think the middle linebacker, the Mike, and the free safety both have that same quality because they have to come up and make calls and checks and stuff at the line. So you can't just say, even though I'm not a captain or I'm not a senior, I'm just not going to be a vocal leader. Because some areas, especially quarterback, you have to be.
Yeah. Okay.
And I think you're a lot like your brother. You're a great character guy. You're those 4 C's, you're good to great at all of them. And then in terms of being vocal, I think a lot of guys go, well, I don't know, I don't feel comfortable with it, or I don't know how.
Yeah.
So I think the best way I've ever seen this broken down, I'm going to give you my screen back so you guys can see this, is there are sort of 2 realms of being a vocal leader, and you have to be both to a degree. And I'm going to use myself as an example so no one feels uncomfortable or like I'm picking on them. But you have to be an encourager. That's basically all the positive stuff you vocalize. And then you have to be an enforcer. And that's kind of like policing things up, cracking the whip, etc. If you've been in the football program more than about a week and or had me in first period world history, TJ, I think you would agree that I do encourage, but I'm a lot better at being an enforcer. And sort of my natural tendency, without making an effort to do one or the other, is I'm pretty good at enforcing, and it doesn't bother me. That's part of my job. And I think I'm kind of weird in that respect, because when you look at this list, I think most people would say, man, those 4 things sound a lot more fun, easy, natural, whatever, than those 3 things that enforcers have to do. And there's nothing wrong with that, because you got to be both. And teams can have guys that are great encouragers, other guys that are great enforcers, and vice versa. So kind of the 4 jobs that encouragers have to do, and these I'm not as good as at these as I am the enforcer ones. I've had last year's captains fill out like an evaluation of me, and there were 7 different aspects of coaching, and the encouraging, confidence building part of that was the one I was rated the lowest, and that was valid. Like, I deserved that. So I'm trying to get better, but I'm not great at that, and that's why I have guys like Coach Donnell and Stevenson who are, and you captains, some of you who are. But the first one is being a servant, and we believe in that. I think I'm pretty good at this one, and it's basically the best way I've heard this explained A guy last week in Casper said, when there are times that there's something fun or enjoyable to do, you put your teammates ahead of you and let them do it. Conversely, when something tough, not so fun, or uncomfortable has to be done, you step up and do it so they don't have to. That's the best way I've heard servant leadership explained, because you hear it all the time. It's kind of a buzzword. When there's fun stuff to do, you share it with other people and push it their way. When there's tough things to do, you take the bullet so they don't have to. So what I thought we'd do is think of like a scenario or an example of that, whether it's as a football player, a student, a son, a teacher, husband, whatever. But how about TJ? Could you give us an example or a scenario where you'd say, okay, here's a way that you could be a servant leader, which is one of those jobs encouragers have?
You want me to say how we can be a servant leader?
Like, yeah, give a scenario or an example. Either make one up or like something you've done, situation you've been in before, or something like that.
I don't get what you mean.
Okay.
Coach, I have an example from spring ball.
Okay.
During spring ball, Tanner and Tristan and Colby, every night after practice, made sure the balls and stuff were all picked up and carried in, and helped clean up the pads. They just didn't go right in. They stayed out there to make sure everything was put away and done right.
Okay, because you think about that definition, that's definitely falls into the category of not so fun stuff to do. So servant leaders say, I'll take that so other guys don't have that on their plate. I think another good example, and something I was proud of, is those puncher ghosts. So that's like guys who've graduated but played here. They came to spring ball. And, you know, they didn't say, can I throw the football? Can I do, like, the fun jobs and drills? They said, can we fill up the water? Can we get the pads out? Can we carry stuff? Basically, can we come out and do the grunt work for you guys? And I think that's a really good example. Well, then I didn't have to do it. The other coaches didn't have to do it. Freshmen or whoever didn't have to do it. And they kind of took that bullet for us. And I think that's a really good example. And I think another one that is pretty important and we don't talk about very often is what happens when someone asks you about a game. Like, let's say we beat Pinedale. You're the quarterback who threw 4 touchdown passes and had all these stats. And the reporter sticks the mic in your face and says, hey, you had a great game. You set a school record or threw for 4 touchdowns, whatever. There's an example to say, okay, the limelight, the positive stuff is getting shown on me. Here's a chance that I can put my teammates above myself and say, hey, my O-line blocked really well. My receivers made great catches. Some of them weren't maybe the best balls, but they went up and got them. Or our defense played well enough to put us in a position to win. Whatever, and share that with other guys. Instead of saying, oh, yeah, I'm pretty good. I had a pretty awesome game. I'm the best. Because that almost sounds silly when you say that. But I think maybe it's your dad asks you how the game was, or your girlfriend. It doesn't have to be a reporter. Do you take credit for everything, or do you share it? And then flip that scenario around. You come home, you got beat by Pinedale by 4 touchdowns, and your girlfriend says, well, your team sucked. What happened? There's a chance to, like, jump on the grenade, take the bullet so that other people and say, hey, you know, I didn't do my job, I didn't prepare, I didn't throw well, whatever, instead of throwing other people under the bus. So does that make sense, Tanner, the servant leadership part?
Yeah, that does.
Okay. The next one is confidence builder. And I'm not very good at this one. I've gotten better, I think, but I'm still not very good at it. But basically, do you build up other guys before they kind of get down on themselves, but especially once they do? Like, Guy drops a ball and under his breath he says something, or hangs his head walking back during a drill or after the play. So, TJ, give us an example, whether it's on the football field, the classroom, at home, at work, whatever, of where you would have an opportunity to be a confidence builder.
On the football field, I think. You got those little skinny kids, and you get them in the weight room. That should build their confidence, I think. And then, yeah, if you encourage them through practice and stuff, like the freshmen. So.
Okay. Here's a common thing I see. Let's say one of those skinny guys comes in the weight room for the first time, and he puts 10s on the bar and power cleans, and then he watches you do double plates or something. What are you going to tell him when he looks at you and sees how much weight you do, and then he hangs his head and goes, wow, I'm weak, or I'm a wuss, or whatever?
Low. I started off low when I started to begin. So, I don't know.
And I think, focus on technique before weight, or like you said, I used to be there. Freshmen are, during two-a-days, the first practice or two, they're going to be looking around going, how does this work? What's this like? And you saw them in spring ball, the ones who came, their head is spinning when we talk about, a coverage or a check that you guys know because you've done it for years. So it's important to build that up before they kind of fall through the floor and get down on themselves, because then it's hard to pull them out of that tailspin. And I'm not the best at that. You guys don't have to be either. But somebody has to do that. Like in a position area, let's say quarterbacks, maybe one guy's a great servant leader. And then maybe another guy's a great confidence builder. And another guy's a great refocuser, whatever. As long as we have somebody who's vocal and does a good job with that, that's what good teams have. You don't all have to be good at the same thing. So, all right, the next role of an encourager is a refocuser, which is basically keeping teammates mentally tough when you're in a situation that they might not believe in themselves, get down on themselves, feel pressure, whatever. So it's kind of like contagious composure is how I think of it. Composure is it's overtime against Grable. They scored. They kicked the PAT, and we either got to score or lose. You can be composed yourself, but what good refocusers do is like, hey, I got to get the other 10 guys on the field or on the sideline on the same page with me. So I was thinking, Coach Stevenson, could you give us an example, sports, school, whatever, of here's a scenario where you'd have a chance to be a refocuser?
Yeah, I think a lot of times that this is something that we need to work on with the green dot was really big with this. But I think we get down on ourselves a lot just when we make like a simple mental error. And I think sometimes we have a tendency to snowball into those mental errors. And I think just anytime, someone jumps or someone, might put us in a hole on accident or have that mental error, especially from our captains, some of you guys on the line, especially defensive line, can really set the tone by just patting those guys on the back, saying, okay, let's just get refocused, let's get these yards back, let's get back in the game, and let's try harder this time, let's push ourselves harder this time, I'll help you out, or I'll help you stay focused on the goal. The goal is to not jump this time, or our goal is to get to that, let's get a sack this time, we haven't had a sack in a while. And anytime you see someone that's acting out or getting mad, like especially like the skinnies, they'll go up for the ball and miss it, and you see them clap and they get upset. And I swear I watch them and I'm like, they're gonna drop the next one, and like 80% of the time they drop the next one. Even someone that's not their position coach, someone that's not a skinny, especially you big guys or the quarterback, anyone just saying, hey, you'll get them next time, but stay focused, rein it back in, let's catch this next ball. And I think that being the encourager and refocusing us towards the play at hand, short memory, that plays over, we can't change it, let's do a new one. Let's execute this one to the top of our ability.
Yeah, I think it's a great example. It's kind of like the green dot thing, only with other guys. My favorite example of this is actually from last year when we were playing Kemmer. I know I've told you coaches this. I don't know if I've told you players this, but we ran that jet sweep with JD at our sideline. It's like a 60-yard gain or something. Our defense had been playing awesome, but our offense had been pretty frustrated. So we had that big breakout play. And then I see the flag on the other side of the field, and they call face mask on the ex-receiver, which is the furthest guy from the football. And, it doesn't matter, but in the moment, I was not very happy. And I remember I bent down, and I really just wanted to punch the turf. And I think I kind of made that motion slowly. I didn't actually punch it, but I was not very happy. And little Tyler Long, little because he's short, he grabbed me, and he's like, "Coach, you need to green dot that right now." And I gotta give him credit because he had some balls. I don't know another word to use, but he had some balls because I was not very happy. And you guys know during games I'm pretty intense, and I was really frustrated and mad. And it was so funny because when he said that to me, I'm the one who's been preaching that, and then here's an example where I need someone else to refocus me. And he's just a guy on the sidelines. He wasn't even in the game on offense. And he said that to me, and I just kind of slowly smiled. I was like, gosh, dang it, he's right. And then Coach Donnell called Cam right, and we ran it for 60 yards right after that, and it worked out fine. But that's a good example. He's not a starter. He played defense that week, and it wasn't even with a teammate. It was with me. He just grabbed me and basically said, "Hey, pull your head out of your butt, coach, and green light it." And hey, it took some guts. I'm sure other people might have looked at me and thought that, but he's the only one that had the courage to actually say that. And I think that's a great one. Even if you're a quiet guy like Tanner, you naturally are a quiet kid in front of people. I know you're not in private or with your friends, but anybody can do that and say, "Hey, green light that. Hey, next play, short memory, whatever." And it doesn't take a big skill set or a flamboyant personality to do that and be a good refocuser.
I think a lot of times it carries more weight when it comes from that quiet, reserved person. If they walk up and say something to you, it has a tendency to pack a bigger punch because that person, you're not used to hearing, "Hey, let's get this," from that particular individual. You're used to seeing them be quiet. So I think it might carry a bit more. It's one way that you can really pick up the leadership torch as well.
Yeah, I totally agree about the quiet guy.
Mm-hmm.
Carrying more weight when it comes from him.
One thing too, talk with quarterbacks. If you have a wide out drop a ball, you come up and say, "Hey, you got it next time." And then next time he's open, you hit him and he catches it. I think you need to make sure you go up and say, "Hey, I told you that you'd catch it next time. I knew you'd do it." Just kind of level them up a little bit to try and, again, boost that confidence for those guys. Or if a lineman misses a block, or if a quarterback then throws a incomplete ball or something. The next time they get it right, I think it's important that you call them out on getting it right, and let them know that you notice that they're doing a good job.
Yeah, and I think that's a little bit like, say you tell the guy great catch. That's like putting a penny in his confidence bank. Because when he drops one, let's say it's an easy pass right in the hands, that's like taking $1 out. And if you haven't had a bunch of people put those little positive deposits in there, his mental toughness, composure, focus, all those things are going to fall through the floor and, like the red light bulb, you just freak out. What were you saying, TJ?
He needed more Hot Pockets.
Is that a South Park reference?
It was.
Okay. The next one, let's see if I can the next one for being an encourager is being a team builder, and this is kind of like the salesman is how I think of it. But take something like that RISE, R-I-S-E acronym, respect, integrity, service, excellence. I can stand up and say that's what we stand for, and the coaches can say that. But it takes some legwork, grassroots level work, like players preaching that and getting other guys to buy in. Another good example, I think, is the weight room. A lot of people in this town think I'm crazy, even other coaches, I'm sure, because I put such a big emphasis on the weight room. But who's going to go out and get other guys to buy into that and say, hey, you do need to do this. You do need to believe. This is a good philosophy or strategy. So, Tanner, would you give us an example or a scenario where you'd have an opportunity as a vocal leader to be a team builder?
Probably like that if there's some kid who's like a lot of these 8th graders are like the kids who they think they're too small, but that's another way to get them into the weight room. Because if they're in the weight room, then they can have more confidence that they can keep up with even the bigger kids than them, and you could get them to play football and get them to be more confident.
And I think you and TJ being underclassmen, one of the issues that's obvious that it can definitely be corrected. It's going to be corrected, but someone other than me and other than coaches Donnell and Stevenson and Barron are going to have to put work in is how many freshman lifting days have we had this summer so far? So incoming freshmen.
Not very many.
Do we know how many?
Yeah. And what do you mean by lifting days?
Like, how many days total have the incoming freshmen lifted this summer?
None.
Yeah.
Oh.
0.
Well, Tyler Long.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay.
You're right, Tanner, Ethan Long, but I don't know if he counts. I'm not going to put him in that category because he's coming from out of state, and I think whether it's something in that grade or personalities, I don't know. But the guys who went to Big Piney Middle School last year as 8th graders have lifted a total of 0 days this summer. So does anybody see where I'm going with this as a scenario or an example for the team builder part of being an encourager? TJ,
Yes.
This is kind of your wheelhouse.
Yeah. I see where you're coming from.
Explain.
Crap. I knew you were going to ask me too. Okay, well, you say that again. Yeah.
Okay. The aspect of being an encourager that we're looking at is being a team builder, getting other guys to buy into programs, philosophies, attitudes, whatever. The fact I'm throwing out that upcoming freshmen, for the most part, have literally not lifted this summer. We agree that's a problem. That doesn't jive with what we believe in. That doesn't jive with what makes you a better football player, athlete, young man, etc. I said this is kind of your wheelhouse, like your area of expertise. Why am I throwing that out here when we're talking about being a team builder?
Because, well, first of all, freshmen are going to be what's taking over the football team when we're gone. So they need to get in the weight room, start building the program up. And I think they need to get in there if they want varsity time. Their program, they play more at age, which they need to be in the weight room to get better. Hear me?
We couldn't hear the last part.
Hold on. Okay. Now, can you?
Yeah, we can hear you. So,
Hello.
what do you have to do with this? I'm asking you this question for a reason.
Um, I should be the one going and picking them up, dragging them out of their house to get them in the weight room. So, and taking them to camp or whatever. So,
And is there an opportunity for older guys like you and Tanner, anyone older than a freshman, who wants to be a better vocal leader to say, hey, of those 4 jobs that encouragers have, serving, being a confidence builder, refocusing, and being a team builder, is there a bright, shining opportunity to go work on one of those and establish myself as a vocal leader?
yeah.
What's an opportunity? What's that mean?
Everyone that's not been doing anything all summer. I mean, me and Tanner, we can both drive. We could go talk to them or hit them up somewhere. And yeah,
And
we're
to me, opportunity means it's there if you choose to pursue it, but
yeah,
no one's going to make you.
yeah. Like at Fair, for example, we had a bunch of opportunity to talk to like Colby Bradley, White Forrester, and whatnot. So
Did you talk to them about buying into the way we do things or the weight room or whatever?
we talked.
Say that again. I can't hear you.
Okay, who's shuffling the deck of cards? Someone needs to mute that.
What?
I keep getting clicks. I can't hear you because every time you speak, there's clicks.
Me?
I don't know
Somebody.
who it is. There's just background noise. We're all muted but you. Ready, go, TJ.
Are you still there, TJ? I don't know what you guys see. I see the same still picture of his face. Now I see his couch.
He's moving on mine, but there's no noise coming out of his machine.
We can't hear you.
Oh my. Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. What was the question again?
Did you use that opportunity to talk to those guys at the fair, like you were saying, and be a
Yeah.
team builder, like get them to buy into stuff or tell them why they should do that?
Yeah, we did. But it wasn't like brief. It was just a short conversation of why about playing, and if they said no, we'd ask them why not and what they're doing, and try to encourage them to come in. And there's a bunch of us older players that were talking to them, so hopefully it got in their head that we wanted them. So
Okay, that's a really good example. So you remember that when the season starts that there's an opportunity for guys to be that team builder type vocal leader and say, hey, come in and lift. Hey, watch film. Hey, do these things we expect of you, even if you're a freshman. Okay. So can you guys see that Google Doc now?
I haven't been able to see any of the pictures or the video you posted up, but I can hear everything.
Okay. Yes or no, can you see the Google Doc with the bulleted list?
No.
I can see the list.
Coach Stevenson can. Coach Donnell?
I just got it.
Okay. So those 4 roles are the encourager side of being a vocal leader. The flip side, which is the one most people struggle with, not just high school football players, I'm talking the average American adult, or when you go work for some company or corporation or school district or whatever, way more people will struggle with this one. And that's being an enforcer. And so a good example of how this is important, if you think about discipline, it's a word you hear all the time in sports, especially in football, being disciplined. Somebody once gave me a good sort of way to visualize discipline and what it means to be a well-disciplined team. And it went something like this. Teams with poor or no discipline have no one holding them accountable. Teams with good discipline have coaches holding them accountable. But teams with great discipline have the players hold each other accountable, and the coaches don't even have to. If you've ever been on a team that was disciplined or wasn't, could someone explain how that fits into that little analogy about poor discipline, no one holds them accountable? Good discipline, coaches do. Great discipline, players hold each other accountable. Somebody other than me. Coach Donnell, let's say.
Well, I think, this can be both on and off the field. For example, Friday night after the ball game, if you have some teammates that may suggest going and doing something that is not a very good choice, to hold those guys accountable. Say, hey, you guys signed these training rules. Our team's counting on you. Let's go do this instead. Just like we talked about before, getting guys to the weight room. Like TJ said, going and getting, picking some guys up or encouraging those guys to get there, saying, hey, we need to go do this. If we want to be successful this year, we've got to get better, and this is how we're going to get better. Getting guys to camp, make sure people show up to practice on time. If we get, it doesn't matter if it's the youngest freshman or our superstar senior, if they show up late for practice, we've got to hold those guys accountable. Hey, if we want to win on Friday, we need to make sure we're here on time so we don't waste any of our practice time waiting for you.
And I got to add, I've been a part of teams that on the discipline meter were anywhere from completely Wild West, no discipline whatsoever, to really, really well-disciplined teams in different sports. The least disciplined team I've ever been a part of was the second place I coached football. I don't know if you guys can see this. Up on my bookshelf, I have like a hat from my high school where I played. That was the Conrad Cowboys. And then that middle helmet's the maroon one, just from a small school in South Dakota, Timberlake Panthers. And that team, a good example of the level of discipline we had. At our homecoming game, in front of our own fans, we had a kid punch another one of our guys in the huddle. And our ref called a 15-yard unsportsmanlike on our guy for punching his teammate, not a dude from the other team. And I've seen and been around a lot of football games. I've never heard of anybody getting unsportsmanlike for doing something to his own teammate. But that's a good example of, like, the coaches did not hold the players accountable, and they definitely didn't hold each other accountable. Now, I've been on really, really well-disciplined teams. One that I think of is a wrestling program that I was a part of. If a kid came in way overweight or was doing something that was going to hurt the team, say they got a D in science and they might fail, the coaches didn't even talk to them. The older guys would grab them, pull them aside, and give them a finger poke in the chest and say, listen up, you will get your weight under control or your grades up or whatever. And they just told them point blank to their face, this is how it's going to be. And I'm serious when I say the 3 coaches in that wrestling program, they didn't discipline anybody. But it was the most disciplined team I've ever been a part of because the older guys and the leaders basically handled that by themselves. So what are some jobs you have to do or some examples? The 3 that we have on here under enforcer. I'm trying to put that back on your screen. You got to hold yourself first, but also your teammates accountable and to a high standard. When somebody's late, you got to pay the price. When somebody flunks a class, something has to be paid for that. When there's a rule or a behavior that's not followed, you got to follow through with it. And that is, a lot of people struggle with that, like constructively confronting people who aren't being disciplined, or when there's a conflict. Like, there's this problem, and we're all in this situation almost every day, where you think you should say something, but you're like, yeah, I don't know, I don't want to be a jerk, or I don't like talking to people and dealing with conflict. And if there's anything we've talked about that I'm good at, I'd say it's these things. But here's what I think helps you get more comfortable with this idea that's otherwise kind of tough to wrap your head around. You got to do it because it's best for the team. So stop in your head thinking, oh, I shouldn't say anything, or I should. Don't worry about that. And if it makes you uncomfortable, instead of confronting the person or saying, you're an idiot, you're a jerk, you're stupid, you're whatever, focus on the behavior that you're confronting, not the person. And you can make that really clear, like, listen, Johnny, you're a great defensive lineman. You do a good job, you show up, you work hard, but you're not using your hands. And we need to get you to strike off the ball and use your hands to lock the guy out and just focus on the behavior instead of the person. Because I think the reason why people take criticism so personally is they automatically go, oh, you're picking on me. You're saying I'm bad. And you got to make it clear to them, but also to yourself, no, my problem's not with you. It's with you not using your hands. Or, the classic one is a guy's late to practice. My problem is not with you as a person. It's with your tardiness. That behavior is what's hurting the team, and we need to confront and just say, all right, listen, dude, you're late. It's the 3rd time you're late. I'm sick of doing push-ups, sit-ups, and squat jacks for your lateness, not for you, your lateness. We need to fix this. And just focus on the behavior instead of the person. Now, I want each of you 3 guys to give me an example where, and you can change names or make it a fictional one, where you went back and forth like, man, I don't know if I should say anything or do anything about that, because I know a lot of people struggle with the enforcer part. So we'll just, on my screen at least, it goes Coach Donnell, Tanner, Coach Stevenson. In that order, could you guys just give one where it's, in the classroom, football field, whatever, where it's like, man, I know I should do something and step up and be an enforcer, but it's tough for me to do that or take that on?
And a long time ago, when I played, we had a rule that, you don't celebrate and dance and stuff like that when you scored. You hand the official the ball back. You celebrate with your teammates, but you don't do anything to single yourself out. We score as a team, and we were playing Grable in the first round of the playoffs, and we were up probably 30 in the second half, and our freshmen were in, and the freshman running back went down and scored, and did a little dance in the end zone after he scored, and my dad, who was our head coach, started walking out to grab him, and before he could get there was about 5 of us seniors that met him at the numbers, and we had a little chat about what was acceptable to be a part of this program and what wasn't acceptable, and how that kind of behavior was not acceptable. So that would be kind of my example of doing that.
My example would probably be like, it doesn't happen so much in like high school, but a lot in middle school. When we'd play football, there would be kids that would not necessarily say they needed to stay after for a teacher, and then even though they didn't have anything, but they wanted to skip the first part of practice if they knew that something that we were doing something that wasn't necessarily fun, so they would stay after just to skip that part. And there was a lot of us that could have said something, but a lot of us didn't to them. That's my example.
Could you, elaborate on that and say, here's a way that, let's say that happens this year in high school. You know, some guy's like, oh, I got to work with Mrs. Hughes, and you know for a fact he doesn't have work to do. He's just trying to get out of practice. How could you hypothetically take on that role as an enforcer and handle that?
I could say something like, then just wait until after practice, and I can help you with it after practice if you really need to have help with something. And then if they still, and then if they didn't have anything, then they would still go to practice.
Yeah, and I think besides like focusing on the behavior instead of the person, another really good thing, especially with talking teenage boys, is sometimes you have to remind them why that behavior is unacceptable. Like Coach Snell said, the whole doing a little dance after you score the touchdown, that freshman kid should probably be reminded, here's why we don't do that, because our program doesn't stand for individual accolades and, you know, you got in here and scored a touchdown in garbage time, but us seniors are the ones who are really putting in the work, and you're trying to shine the spotlight on yourself. Or you're skipping stuff where we're installing a new play that you want to come score touchdowns on Friday, yet you make up some BS excuse about going to English class. So the reason you need to be here is because that's important, or we wouldn't be doing it. I think sometimes when you remind people of that, they kind of go like, oh, yeah, you're right, because they just think about themselves.
Yeah,
But
makes a lot of sense with that.
and you keep that in mind, because you students in the classes know more about, you know, do I really have biology homework? Do I really need to go into band class after school instead of the first 20 minutes of football? Because we coaches, we don't really know. Coach Stevenson, could you give us an example? You're muted, Coach.
I was excited. I had a good idea. But I think some of the things that the best place for me is I see, especially with some of our leadership from last year, and I haven't seen it so much from leadership this year because I haven't been in the classroom, but I know, just to use a name, just because I don't think you'd mind it, Justice Fisher, watching him act in a classroom was quite a treat. He would constantly lead not only the football players and the other wrestlers, but also the general populace classmates in what proper and inappropriate behavior was. He would call people out all the time in the class, say, hey, that's against the school rules. We don't do that in our classrooms, whether they were on the football team or not. He would, especially towards the end of the year, he'd be like, that's not how we do things in Big Pioneer. That's not how our high school does things. You need to lock it up. And it was quite impressive. I specifically, I won't name names of the players or the students, but they were just acting up, being knuckleheads like high school students do. And I was just getting ready to say something to them, and Justice Fisher stepped in as an aide and said, hey, no, that's not how this game works. Shut up, sit down, and pay attention. And it was pretty impressive. And I think that's one way where we can not only attract more kids to the football program, but also kind of continue with that positive message that the community is getting from the football program is, hey, we play football and we follow the rules, and we hold people accountable for what they need to be held accountable for. But that's the example I have.
Yeah, and I got to say, Justice Fisher, he did a lot of things really well as a leader, but of all the things, the 4 C's of being a leader by example, and then the enforcer versus encourager thing, he's an awesome enforcer. He's the best one we've had since I've been in Big Piney, and a good example of that was when we had an issue that we had to deal with as a football program. A guy was not exemplifying the type of values we want to exemplify. And I kind of said my piece, and I said, all right, captains, tell them what you think. And you guys know it's more powerful to hear that from your teammates than from your coaches. You already know what I'm going to say. And I'll never forget his eyes. He, burned a hole into this kid. And he goes, you little brat, you think you're bigger than us and you can do whatever you want, you are not going to screw up the season and start a bunch of drama for us our senior year. And I so desperately wanted to give him a high five or a slap on the butt or a fist bump and just say, yes, Fisher, that's exactly what this kid needed to hear. And I could have said the same stuff, and the kid would have rolled his eyes. But when Fisher, or the captain, whoever the guy is, he tells you that, you feel like, ooh, yeah, he's right. Like that stings coming from your teammate, and that's going to change your behavior a lot more than one of us coaches telling you that. So, but what I want to leave you guys with, coaches too, because I think if you look at our coaching staff, since I've been the head coach, this will be my 5th year, I think 90% of the enforcer duties I put on myself, and I'm comfortable with it. I'm hesitant to say I enjoy it or I like it because it's not fun. I just know it's necessary. But I have to focus on being a better encourager. And I am looking for mostly other guys on the team, captains, leadership guys, quarterbacks, whoever, players, to take that role over slowly so I can do less of that and be a better encourager because I need to be. But I want you to think about, of these ones we talked about, and I think I can put these back on your screen here. The encourager comes with the roles of being a servant, confidence builder, refocuser, and team builder. The enforcer comes with holding yourself and teammates accountable, constructively confronting undisciplined teammates, and handling conflict in a firm, direct, and consistent manner. So there's basically 7 things there to being a vocal leader. Which one are you best at and or most comfortable with? Like, comes naturally easy for you. Like we said, Justice Fisher was a great, at, I would say, constructively confronting and also being just firm and direct. Like, he wasn't going to BS you and say, listen, here's why this behavior is unacceptable. He'd just say, hey, idiot, don't do that, period. And I think people respected that, and that's an important job. But then, which one are you best at? And then, conversely, which one are you... Man, my spelling is not so hot today.
It's Sunday and we've been out of school for a while, so
I know. You spell checked a few things, but you missed that one.
Yeah.
But which one are you worst at or least comfortable with? Like, you look at those 7 things, one of those probably makes you cringe or go, oh man, I'm not good at that, or I hate that, or I suck at that. And then with that one, how can you improve that? So I know you may not all see this list on my screen. I put the Google Doc in the chat window. But whether you type that out, write that out, think about it, whatever, look at those 7. What are you best at? What are you worst at? And how can you improve that one? So, for example, with me, I'd say, I'm not all enforcer. Of the encourager ones, the thing I'm best at is being a servant. Okay, so for example, a staff member at the high school, she's going to be moving sometime this week, and I volunteered the puncher football moving crew to help her out, and she's excited about that. But there's a job that sucks. I hate moving. I hate moving as much as anything. I hate moving more than CLI, because I know you other 2 teachers will understand the power of that statement. But that's one of those crappy jobs. Okay, let the football team come help you. And I don't think you guys have moved anything where I wasn't there. Like, I haven't volunteered TJ and said, oh, TJ will come help, Tanner will come help, but I won't be there. I'm always there. And I hate that, but it's important because it's kind of like sharing the burden. So I'm pretty good at that of the encourager ones. And I think of the enforcer ones, I'm pretty good at being level-headed, direct, and consistent. I don't think anyone's going to say that I play favorites or have different rules for different people. classroom-wise or football-wise. But you look at what am I least comfortable with or worst at? I'd say it's probably confidence builder. So my job when I shut this off is I'm going to write down, like I got a big whiteboard next to me here, so I can watch Huddle. I don't know if you guys can see that whiteboard right there. Say, okay, I need to work on being a better confidence builder. What are some practical steps, opportunities that exist, whatever, for me to build that up in myself? So if you guys would just go down the line, let's do reverse order and go Coach Stevenson, then TJ, then Tanner, and then Coach now last. What are you best at on that list of 7? I'll put it on your screen. What are you worst at? And then what are some ideas you have for how you can improve, and then other people can throw you some ideas. So Coach Stevenson, I'll let you go first. I'll put that back up on my screen.
Al, for me, I mean, my strength is in the encourager section, and I think I'm quite good at confidence building and being a team builder. I excel at bringing people together, linking people together with people that can help them or give them assistance when they need it, or just stepping in and helping do that. Also, I'm really good at trying to focus on the positive things, just through psychology. When I was studying, it was positive reinforcement when they're doing the behavior that you want works much better than negative reinforcement, and positive reinforcement when they're doing the behavior you don't want. So I excel at confidence builder and team builder. Those are probably 2 of the things I'm strongest with. I struggle with handles conflict in a firm and direct manner. I'm consistent, but being firm and direct, sometimes I feel like I really need to work on being able to say, hey, stop being a moron, and let's change what we're doing. And I can work on that just by simply doing it. Just saying, okay, I just need to tell this coworker, this student, this person that they're making silly decisions and they're being an idiot, and we need to fix it. But yeah, that's what I think. And I'm always open to suggestions. Ready, go.
Players, give them some.
I think mostly, like you said, it just sometimes it does help. You don't always want to hear it straight, but it helps a lot when the coach or just anybody comes up to you and tells you like exactly what you're doing wrong. Then you know they're serious about like you need to fix it as soon as you can.
TJ, you're up.
So you want me to do the 7 things now?
Yeah, what are you best at? What do you need to work on the most, and how can you work on it?
I think. Can you put that back up? Sorry. It's black.
It might take a sec, but it should be up.
Okay, there it is. I think I'm best at the refocuser and team builder. I'm not like refocuser. I'm not like super positive all the time, but I try to get in people's head and make them do what they're supposed to do. And team builder, I like to have everyone unified. Everything you work to get, you win more if you work together as a team. That's what I think. And I'm probably worst at constructively confronts undisciplined teammates, because if I had to confront someone, it probably wouldn't be very constructive. Probably tell them a few not so constructive things, but
So how can you build that up and improve at that?
constructively confront. Well, I guess it depends. I guess instead of saying a bunch of crap to them, you just tell them to not knock their crap off, I guess. And that they're hurting the team and themselves, not any. I don't know. It's kind of a
Okay, you might have been offline for part of it, but
yeah.
when we talked about confront the behavior, not the person, and Coach Stevenson, the psych major, was nodding his head because he knows this stuff better than me. But I think the other big one is remind them why that behavior is harmful to themselves or the team, and that's a good way to make it constructive. Instead of just, hey,
Oh.
knucklehead, knock it off, quit being an idiot. That's not constructive. It's kind of like, think about feedback you get from teachers.
Yeah.
If a teacher just said, TJ, you suck at writing essays, that they're confronting you, but that is in no way, shape, or form constructive, because you go, okay, well, how does that make me a better writer to say I suck at writing essays? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So let's say it's a guy who doesn't come lift. Have that conversation with your phone. That's Bob. Bob has not lifted all summer. How can you constructively confront somebody who hasn't been lifting?
You ask them why they haven't been there, and if they give you a poor excuse, well, then you tell them, guess if you want to be playing varsity, you ain't gonna be, because you haven't been in the weight room, and you're tiny anyway. No. But kind of
And
along
then,
those.
okay, so give them some steps. How can I be better at lifting?
I
What am I
think
supposed to do?
one thing to remember too is like when you're confronting the behavior, you say, you've been late for a while, and we can work on making you be on time. And you could say, make sure you use the we statements when you first confront them. Hey, you've been late a lot. Then you follow up with a we statement. We can work on that. Okay, so try to do that about the weight room and use a we statement to the person that you're confronting.
Okay.
Does that make sense, TJ?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, Tanner, what are you best at? What do you need to work on, and how can you get better at it?
I don't have the list, so I did pick up one thing that I'm not positive reinforcement, like keeping up on yourself. I have like the tendency to, after a few mistakes, I get down on my self level and help people get out of that hole after they get down on their self. So I know that I need to work on that for myself and help other people get better at that. And I don't have the list, so I don't know the rest of them, so I don't know which one I'm good at.
All real fast. Servant, confidence builder, refocuser, and team builder. Those are the parts of being an encourager. And then the enforcer ones are holding yourself and teammates accountable, constructively confronting, and handling conflict.
I think I'm pretty okay at like handling the conflict. If I know that if somebody's like having a hard time with another player or they don't want to do something, then I think I'm pretty good at being able to help them get through that and help them get better at it.
Yeah. So what are some ways you can be a better confidence builder and improve at that?
Like just like Coach Chanel said, that if they're having a hard time catching a ball or something, make sure that you tell them that they'll get it next time, and when they do, build upon the little things that they do right. If they do something, even if they do drop the ball, compliment them on something that they did really well in that.
And I think if I had to pick two of these that quarterbacks, just by the nature of their position, have to be best at, Coach Snell can tell me his opinion, but I think the first two probably the most important is you got to be a servant and like let other guys have the limelight, the credit. Not just worry about your stats or your scholarship or whatever, and also being a confidence builder. Because if those 10 guys around you are not confident, you're not going to be able to do anything by yourself as a quarterback. It's not like basketball where you can say, hey, 4 guys stand on the sideline, I'm going to go one-on-one and dunk on this guy because I'm just better than him. It doesn't work in football. So if your teammates aren't confident as a quarterback, doesn't matter how confident you are, your team is going to struggle.
Yeah.
All right. Coach Stanell, what do you got?
Well, I think that the confidence thing. First of all, I agree with what you're saying about the servants and the confidence as quarterbacks. I'd probably say with me, my strengths would probably be the confidence part. Being able to find the positives in what was going on, and then to try and correct the mistakes. But then the one thing that I think I really am uncomfortable with, just with my personality, is the conflict. I'm not somebody who likes the conflict. I've worked with people that kind of thrive on it. I don't know if you know Bubba O'Neill in Evanston. He thrives on conflict, but I'm not one that likes conflict.
So you tell me as a head coach, what are some ways that you can improve and get better at that one?
I honestly I don't know. There's things that I don't feel comfortable with conflict, but it doesn't mean that if I see something that I don't feel needs to be done or said, I'm still going to say it. It's just something that I'm not overly comfortable with.
Yeah, if I could throw out maybe a weird analogy, but let's say, my wife's a nurse, so any job in the medical field, especially like in a hospital or something, those people are going to have to deal with death. Like someone's going to come in and have cancer. Some patient of yours, if you're there long enough, they're going to die. Somebody's going to come in with a gunshot. And I don't think any of those, doctors, nurses, surgeons, whatever, enjoy that part of their job. But the ones who are good at dealing with it say it's an important part of the job, and you don't ever look forward to it or enjoy it. But that's kind of how I see conflict. And my role is different than your guys's because I'm the head coach, and I firmly believe that my number one job is to be that enforcer guy, and that's why some people don't like me or they think I'm a jerk or I'm gruff or whatever. But I feel like that I have to do that. But Coach Stevenson, I know you know this because you're a psych guy. Could you explain what exposure therapy is and how that works for people who have like phobias or OCD or something like that? Because I think that, I'm not a psychiatrist or a psychologist. I think that's a good way to work on things that make you uncomfortable and see like, yeah, you don't have to like it, but it's not going to kill you. It's not as horrible as maybe you think it is in your imagination or in your head.
Yeah, so the big thing with things that you're not uncomfortable, it all derives from anxiety. So if you're around something that makes you feel uncomfortable, it's because you're anxious about it, right? I read an article just the other day, and it talked about how, you feel anxious if you go to a place where you don't belong. For example, if like I were just to walk into a Latino nightclub, I'd be like, I'd feel really anxious and uncomfortable. So that anxiety is what you're looking to cure, and you do that through exposure of it. So if you feel anxious when, let's say, a girl's around, the best way to get over that anxiety is to expose yourself to it, and then like Coach McKelkey said, you learn, oh, you're not going to die, because it derives from the fact that anxiety generally precedes, in evolutionary terms, death, right? You feel anxious because there's a saber-toothed tiger running at you. So you feel anxiety, and then you have to run, you feel like you have to get out of there, triggers fight or flight. And when you expose yourself to that, you cut out your lower brainstem, or your lizard brain, what a lot of people like to call it. You cut out the lower brain, and you start using your higher brain function and saying, hey, I don't need to be scared of this. I'm not actually in danger. It's just I'm feeling anxiety. So you cut that part out. You cut out that anxiety through more exposure. The more you're exposed to it, the less anxious you are. And the chance of you actually ever liking it, probably slim to none. But you can say, okay, I can deal with this. I can function underneath that. And that's just slowly exposure. Like if you had a phobia, you start off with something small, and then you work your way up to bigger and bigger and bigger and more until you're done. It's just kind of the concept of like running a marathon or running a mile, right? You might start your mile slow, but when you expose yourself to it, you get fast and you get better, you feel more comfortable with it. It's the best way to do things, especially in anything where you feel uncomfortable, you feel like you're weak in it. Exposure therapy is just the number one thing, and we all do it. That's what two is, our exposure therapy. We're exposing ourselves in the freshmen to the concept of the Big Pine High School team, the football program, what it entails, the work we have to do. And by the end of 2 days, you're farm worker. And by 3 weeks in, you're ready to go. It doesn't have anxiety anymore.
Yeah, you're breaking up a little bit at the end. I don't know if that was just me, but I think that's a good way to approach something that you struggle with, or like I said, I think on this list, 90% of people are going to say the conflict and confrontation part is hard. And, it's hard for me. I don't enjoy it, but I know it's important, and that's kind of how you talk yourself into like, all right, I got to sit this guy down and tell him to stop flunking English class or being late or not doing his work or whatever. But shoot, Coach Donnell, I think maybe we should just let you give you some areas of discipline and say you're in charge now, since I'm already pretty good at it and I do 90% of it. Maybe that would be good for you, according to Coach Stevenson's diagnosis.
I don't think so.
I thought Coach Donnell just dropped my out. I think he dropped his phone. I was like, did he just drop the mic and leave?
Yeah, so, well, I'll put this is going to go on YouTube, so if you don't subscribe to my channel, just type in my name, Aaron McKelkey, on YouTube, and you'll see it, and hit subscribe. And then I tweet it out every time I upload something. My Twitter handle's @ and then Mr. McKelkey, Mr. McKelkey. And then you can share this with guys. I'll send it out to people too. But seriously, think about that. And then when you come in for two-a-days, whether you're a coach or a player, one of those ones that I'm not very good at, how do I get better? And if you need something from me, like you need some opportunities or scenarios for me that I can put you in and let you work on that, or there's some issue, go, hey, I want to work on constructively confronting, like TJ said. Okay, the next time a guy needs to be constructively confronted, you're going to come in the coach's office and sit down. We can talk beforehand, but you're going to handle instead of me. So if you take nothing else away from the enforcer, I think it's kind of a necessary evil. And the best disciplined teams have players enforcing, not coaches. And that's, in my experience, that's a totally true statement. And I know you other coaches agree with that. So do you guys have any questions? The last part on the Google Doc you can read on your own if you want to see. But is there anything else anybody has a question on or wants to know while we're still here?
I got nothing.
Nope.
Okay. One of the big things in that. Okay, I highlighted it on the Google Doc. Let me put this up real fast. You got to have your physical by Friday the 12th, because we start two-a-days on Monday the 15th at 7:30 a.m. The free day at the Marbleton Clinic is that Wednesday, so not this coming Wednesday, but the following one, August 10th. It goes from 8 to 5. There's some paperwork. If your parents don't come with you, you can have them fill it out at home and sign it, and then you come on your own, or they come in with you for your appointment. But call them and make one, and make sure you have a physical.
All right.
Okay? Because Delgado's here, and he says he's going to get his. But make sure you do that. If you need help, my wife works at the clinic. She can get you an appointment or answer questions or whatever. But thank you guys for beaming yourselves in. Last week we had 3. This week we had 5. The Sunday before 2-a-days, which will be the 14th, we're going to do one. I think our goal should be 7. So if we can get at least 2 more guys, which I think is easy, that's our goal for this. So thanks for joining me, and if you guys need something else, telegram me, email me, send me a smoke signal, whatever. But hopefully you learned something about being a vocal leader and got something you can work on. So thanks, guys.
See you guys.
Enjoy one of your last 2 weeks before football starts.
Yeah.
See ya.